apple juice really hits the spot. I did break my rule. I'm filming after work because if you saw my community tab post, I got the stomach flu and it was not fun. I don't think it ever is fun unless you're very weird. But anyway, I digress. I did not have a good time and it took me probably 2 weeks to really feel back to normal. Also, if you notice, the leaves or my hair moving, I have the fan on because I had to turn the AC off to film so you could hear me and I didn't have to edit the sound like crazy. But anyway, had the stomach flu, didn't mean to intentionally delay this video, so I apologize, but we're here, we're back, I feel good, we're good. Also, that apple juice is my favorite. I am an apple juice girly. I'm not really an orange juice girly because I have acid reflux. And something about the Honeycrisp, it's like an apple in a cup. I don't know. I'm not gonna get into it. But if you have a Stop and Shop near you and you haven't tried it, definitely try it. But anyway, hi, hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Cynthia if you are new here. And today we are talking about Tusk Love by Thea Guanzon in part 1. I got up to about halfway in this book, but I did not finish the book. I generally like to wrap up books in one reading vlog, but life has just been lifing a little too hard on this side of the internet. So this is part 2. We're going to finish talking about this book. Things have very much changed. My thoughts on the first half of the book are very different from the second half of the book. So I don't think I have any housekeeping. If I do, I'll just mention it later because it's not at the forefront of my mind right now. But honestly, let's just get into it. If you're not coming from part 1, a very quick recap of Tusk Love is this story is about our main character Guinevere, who is the daughter of merchants, and her parents have tasked her with bringing essentially the rest of their belongings all the way across the land to them and also to meet her betrothed. And this is the first time she's ever ventured out on her own. She's always traveled with her parents. So this in and of itself is an experience for her. Along the way, she gets attacked. She meets Oscar, who is half orc, and he essentially decides that he is going to escort her the rest of the way because, let's be honest, she was on the road for 5 minutes and got attacked. So she needs someone because all of the guards that her father hired were killed. So Oscar and Guinevere then go on their merry way down the rest of the Amber Road to meet Guinevere's parents on the Menagerie Coast and to meet up with her betrothed. And I'm gonna leave it there for a summary because if I say anything else, it will spoil it. But essentially, TLDR, we're going on an adventure. In part 1, I left off almost halfway into this book. And by that point, everything was set up very nicely. I was getting to know Guinevere and Oscar. I liked them. I enjoyed. By that point in the book, I was just starting to get to know Guinevere and Oscar, and I liked their characters. I also really liked their dynamic. I still can't get over the scene where Guinevere goes bartering in Oscar's village and the run-in she has. I actually think about that scene a lot, and I feel like it's such a Guinevere moment for her character. I left off about halfway through, and when I picked back up, I read probably about 10% more of the physical book, and then I switched over to the audiobook. So the second half of this video isn't like a traditional reading vlog, it's more of a review because I finished the last, I'd say probably 4.5 hours of this book on my phone, on Spotify, listening to the audiobook, which I'll get into my thoughts later, but the main thing is that this book got so spicy. There was some flirtation in the first half of the book. There was a lot of setup and getting to know the dynamic between Oscar and Guinevere, but also Guinevere and her parents, even though we don't meet her parents until the last 15% of the book. Guinevere's parents do play a very large role in her life, and she is a lot of the reasons for why she is the way she is because of her parents. And so there's just a lot of setup and some backstory so that things make sense and we get to know the characters more. And I'm 50-50 on the world building, to be honest. It was there. It wasn't a big thing because we spend a lot of time in the story on the Amber Road, traveling between different towns, staying at inns, and the end goal really is to just get to the Menagerie Coast, which is all the way on the other side of the Amber Road. So world building was okay. But like I said, it got very spicy. I was not expecting that level of spice. It turned up the heat quite hot, and it was a little awkward, I'm not gonna lie, to listen to some of those scenes at my desk at work, but powered through, we soldiered on, and the smell wasn't bad. It's not that I didn't enjoy it, I just kind of wish that I had known it was gonna get that spicy because I probably just would have pushed through the physical book because I really didn't like the narrators. Speaking of the narrators, I'm going so off course from my blog post, which I'm using as a very loose script for talking points. So if this feels a little chaotic, I apologize. I'm kind of feeling a little chaotic right now. There's been a lot going on. But anyway, the narrators of this book are Brittany Presley and Teddy Hamilton. Teddy Hamilton was okay. He sounded like one of the characters from A Perfect Divorce by Geneva Rose. Was that title right? Teddy Hamilton was okay, but I am not a fan of Brittany Presley. I don't really like the way she narrates books. And so if I'm being honest, I will go out of my way to avoid books that are narrated by her because I'm not a fan. But I really wanted to finish this book because at this point I was really interested in what was going on, especially surrounding Guinevere's magic and the mercenaries and what the hell that girl had in that trunk. I needed to know. So I was like, you know what? We're just gonna push through it and we're not gonna listen to it at a faster speed. We're just gonna suck it up. Cynthia, we're gonna suck it up. So I did. And honestly, it wasn't that bad. I think I was just being a little dramatic. But we're on this journey. Things get very spicy. Guinevere and Oscar I don't want to say they have miscommunication. They do definitely misunderstand each other, and they're definitely not being fully honest with how they feel about each other, primarily because once they get to the end of the Amber Road and the Menagerie Coast, there's some dude waiting for Guinevere to marry her. So I get why Oscar's holding back. Also, Oscar's saying Guinevere's arranged fiance's name wrong every single time. Just like chef's kiss, 10 out of 10. Loved that for him. But in my opinion, the first half wasn't a drag. It was interesting in its own way, but looking back on it, it definitely felt like two parts to me just because I did switch formats. The first half I read, the second half I listened to. I think that affected the story a lot too. The ending was a little crazy. The ending got a little crazy. The ship scene was a little much in my opinion. I wasn't really a fan of that, but it was nice to get the full backstory of Guinevere's birth and her parents' story and to really just get the truth because Guinevere she's not an unreliable narrator. She's just naive. There are things that even she doesn't know, and so we find these things out alongside her. So I'm not going to sit here and call the girl a liar, but it was good to finally get answers. I do also believe this is a standalone. The way it ends gives me standalone vibes. I don't see there being another book or series. Overall, it was a fun time. So before I wrap up, there were a few other points I wanted to touch on before I close out the video. The first being that this book had quite a few of my favorite tropes. There was one horse, one bed. Grumpy and Sunshine, I'm not that big of a fan of, mainly because I don't like how they're written. I really liked how these two were written in terms of Grumpy Sunshine. There was also a forbidden romance, mini adventure, and she comforts him. I have such a soft spot for she comforts him trope. I don't know what it is. I just like hug that man. And it's so odd because I'm a certified man hater, so I don't know where that comes from. There were so many tropes that I liked in this book that were very fantasy romance tropes. So if you like a lot of fantasy romance tropes, I think you will like this book. The other thing that I wanted to touch on was the critical role aspect, because literally right in the corner, there's that critical role logo stamp participation trophy. You definitely do not need any knowledge of critical role to enjoy this book. I went into this book blind. I have not read any of Thea Guanzon's other books. I do have The Hurricane War and the sequel to that book on my bookshelf that I do intend to read. Haven't read them yet, but this was my first book by her. I also don't know anything about Critical Role, and honestly, in my opinion, there was 0% of the story that I missed out on because I didn't have any Critical Role knowledge. I think if you like Critical Role and you have Critical Role knowledge, then this is just fantastic for you. But for those of us who don't have Critical Role knowledge, you definitely can still read this book without feeling like there are things you don't understand. I feel like everything was explained and straightforward and just made sense. But all in all, this book was quite a fun time. It's not that long either. I think it's barely 300 pages. So realistically, if you're not in a whole life slump like I am right now, it probably will not take you more than a couple days to read if you really just give it a few hours each day. And I'm going to give it a 3.75, rounded up to 4 stars out of 5 stars because I really liked it. I love going on an adventure, but I feel like with every adventure story I read, there always just hits a point where I'm just like, are we there yet? I don't know if that's just me. And I had the same issue with Sword Heart as well. And again, if you read Sword Heart and you liked Sword Heart, I would definitely recommend Tusk Love. I think this is also a good introduction to fantasy romance if you're trying to get into fantasy romance or even monster romance. Oscar is half orc, but for those of you that were concerned that Oscar's a half orc, it's not freaky monster romance. Don't worry. It's not that kind of story. But I definitely would recommend this if you have read Sword Heart and you liked it. But it was kind of just the same thing where I was just like, we've been on the road for a while. Are we there yet? So I think maybe it's just personal taste and I need maybe just a shorter mini adventure, but I'm gonna say 3.75 stars out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it. It was a very fun time. It was very smutty. If you like spicy books, you will definitely like Tusk Love. And I don't think I have anything else. If I forgot anything, I will leave it in a pinned comment, but all in all, Tusk Love was genuinely such a fun book. I cannot recommend it enough. I know I didn't rate it super highly, but that's because there were a few things I didn't really like. Like, I really hated Guinevere's parents. Where do some of these people get the audacity? And I know they're fictional characters. Don't come for me. I know I'm mentally unwell already. But I'm just like, where do these people get the audacity? I really hated Guinevere's parents. I wish the dynamic between Guinevere and Oscar had been just a tiny bit more genuine. And like I said, I know she had a fiance. I get it. But I just wanted Oscar to be more honest with her, especially because they did get quite intimate quite fast once the story started going and they were really on the road. And I would have liked a little bit more about Guinevere's magic. We got a good dose of it, we got a good explanation, we got a good backstory, but I wanted more. I felt like there could have been room for more there, but there were a few things like that, you know, I kind of wasn't the biggest fan of. I'm losing my mind. But like with any book, there were a few gripes here and there, but honestly, it was a fun read, and I've said probably 10 times now because I'm just repeating myself. I would definitely recommend it, but if you're someone who doesn't really like spicy books, you're not really into monster romance, you feel like you need to understand Critical Role before you can read this book, or you're just not into it, just skip it, because honestly, the stakes aren't that high. I'm pretty sure it's a standalone, and if you're not willing, but if you are interested in any of the things I've mentioned, then you definitely should read it. I also wanted to mention, which I didn't mention earlier, and I don't remember if I mentioned this in part 1, but I really liked Thea Guanzon's writing. Just her writing style and how she describes things and tells the story. I found that I really liked that, so I'm hoping that when I do read the Hurricane Wars, and you know what, let me just grab them. So I have the Hurricane Wars and A Monsoon Rising, which is second book. Just a tidbit real quick. I actually got A Monsoon Rising from the Ripped Bodice on my birthday, not realizing it was the second book, and no one told me. So I got this one, and then I went ahead and ordered the first book on Pango Books from another lovely bookseller, and I'm hoping to read those soon since I did enjoy Tusk Love and the writing, so I'm hoping that Hurricane Wars and Monsoon Rising aren't too far off. If you've read them, I would love your opinion on them. Obviously, it's spoil-free, but I would love to hear your thoughts on them, whether you liked them or not. But I don't really have anything else. I think I'm going to wrap it up here. Like I said, if I think of anything else, I will leave it in a pinned comment, but I don't think I have anything else. I think I pretty much covered everything. And thank you so much for hanging out with me. I'm sorry this was delayed. I'm sorry if this felt a little all over the place. I'm just getting back into the groove of my routines and content and posting, and so. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye.